And joining us is Taylor Williamson, who is the Director of Government Affairs for the Kansas Wheat. Hi, Taylor.
Hi, Ken. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us. As we have turned the calendar now to 1st of April, early April, Easter weekend, it's kind of maybe time to get that first look at the Kansas wheat crop as it's broke dormancy. What are you seeing? What are you hearing of how things look around the state?
Right. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here with you. The rains have obviously helped improve the situation, and they really came at a critical time as we break from that dormancy, as you mentioned, and move into that growing season. So if you look back at last fall, the early planted wheat really got off to a pretty good start with the available moisture, while that later planted wheat didn't get the establishment, the emergence, or the crown and root development that you'd like to see. So between that and the drier soils leading into February, with those very, very cold temperatures, we were a little bit worried about winter kill. But the soil temperatures at the time were actually higher than the air temperatures. And then we got these March rains, so I think the crop is responding pretty well. Then growers also, they got out prior to the rain, knowing the forecast, were able to apply some of those fertilizers. So right now we've got not only moisture, but vital nutrients there at the root zone, which is crucial for the number of tillers, the development of the head, and the number of kernels. So we're sitting at roughly 2% jointed. We're a little bit behind, but that could actually lessen the impact of any potential spring freezes. Now, the upcoming weather and the south winds could also get things moving along pretty fast. We did see an uptick in sub and topsoil moistures, and we've seen a 20% jump in conditions from about a month ago. We're sitting at 50% good to excellent. So we've got a ways to go, but there's a lot of optimism for this year's crop.
Well, that's it. So thanks for that update. Talk about optimism, or at least challenges. Let's focus on DC the rest of our conversation. So as we wrap up this first segment, there's a lot going on. And one thing we do know is another version of coronavirus assistance is coming farmers' way.
Yeah, absolutely. So the USDA announced implementation of existing COVID relief provisions and resources, as well as those recently authorized by Congress. Most importantly for wheat farmers and other farmers, this includes a $20 per acre payment that is based on those CFAP2 applications. Now, farmers will not need to submit a new applications, and payments are expected to go out in about April. This was pretty good news from the USDA, but Congress was very specific in the December relief package about that $20 per acre. The announcement is also part of a broader relief initiative by the department. They are now calling it the USDA Pandemic Assistance for Producers Initiative. Programs like CFAP fall into this, but it's really broken down into 4 different parts. So part 1 includes $6 billion to expand help and assistance for more producers. This component includes assistance for a variety of stakeholders, including biofuels, livestock, and then PPE for food and farm workers. Part 2 adds about $500 million of new funding for existing programs. This includes $28 million for NEFA for grants to state departments of agriculture that are working with programs on farm stress assistance. So if people are stressed out about the current situation, if they're needing some help through those things, that's what some of those programs are being funded. Part 3 carries out the formula payments for CFAP1, CFAP2, and this additional assistance of CFAP. That includes that $20 per acre that I mentioned. These additional payments will amount to around $4.5 billion and will go out to over 550,000 producers. Then part 4 is reopening the CFAP2 application to help improve access and outreach to the more underserved producers.
All right, Taylor, lots of stuff to unpack. Making sure we can find it online, and so we'll continue that conversation. Taylor, let's take a quick break. Taylor Williamson, Kansas Wheat's joining us. We come back, we'll discuss farmers' role in this whole carbon debate when we return.
Absolutely.
And our guest this week is Taylor Williamson, who is the Director of Governmental Affairs for the Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. And Taylor, one of the things that we've heard about going on back in DC is the Biden administration focusing on climate, which is doing a lot of focus on carbon farming, carbon banks. What role would the Kansas wheat farmers play in all that?
Absolutely. So this is always a very controversial topic. There's lots of different opinions between farm groups, between farmers themselves, and for sure between our legislators up in DC. So one of the first bills that we're expecting to move through the Senate Ag Committee is called the Growing Climate Solutions Act. This is something that is sponsored by American Farm Bureau and is endorsed by a number of different organizations. So while it does have bipartisan support, there are a lot of questions around it. The bill essentially authorizes the USDA to develop a program to reduce barriers of entry into carbon markets. These farmers face significant numbers of these barriers between technical knowledge, understanding of how the carbon markets work, and so that's something that the USDA has been working to address. It also sets up an advisory council to help advise the USDA on new and existing programs. So it's gotten a lot of pushback, especially from the House Ag Committee ranking member. That would be Pennsylvania Representative G.T. Thompson. He thinks that government should just stay out of private markets in general. There's also a lot of questions about where the funding will come from. So ranking member John Bozeman in the Senate Ag Committee has stated that he doesn't want to see funding come from existing farm programs. So they'll have to look for a different source for that funding. And so a number of the sponsors have been looking at new ways to try to figure out how to fund that proposal. So then also sticking close to that area, the Conservation Reserve Program is something we're all pretty familiar with. We're sitting at around 20.8 million acres nationally enrolled in the program, which is quite a ways short of the 25 million acre limit. That's been pretty disappointing to the USDA, and Secretary Vilsack has really put some emphasis on trying to figure out different ways to encourage more participation in the program. Then you also mentioned the carbon bank and carbon farming. The USDA has made that a priority to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and they feel like a USDA carbon bank could be one of the solutions to that. So there's a lot of work to be done in this area, including CCC funding, technical portions of it, but it really seems like that's going to be a big priority, especially since the administration has put an emphasis on finding new markets for agriculture. They feel that carbon could be one of those new markets.
Well, Taylor, there's a lot there to go through, and we're just the beginning of these conversations as the new administration kind of gains their traction. And so I'm sure these conversations will continue for quite a while. So again, appreciate you joining us and all the updates, and we wish farmers a great last of the growing season. Look forward to good reports for this summer's Kansas wheat harvest. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken, for the opportunity to be here.
Taylor Williamson is the Director of Governmental Affairs for Kansas Wheat. He's joined us. Stay with us. More coming up.